All right, so welcome to episode number 3 of Beer Diet Project, our podcast. Today we're going to talk about health. Health is a skill. So this is a concept that I'm super excited to be sharing with you today and talk about because I believe that this approach to health has been basically what has helped me the most out of anything is basically treating health as a skill. Okay, not treating health as something that you do when you get sick. It's not treating health as something that you only pay attention to once in a while. I see health as something that you do every single day. And if you don't do it every single day, then over time your health deteriorates. But if you do practice health every single day, then that is what is going to have a compound effect and actually improve your health over time. So to kick it off, I want to read off a couple of my favorite proverbs. And one of them is, it's an Indian proverb, and basically it reads, "A person who has their health has 1,000 dreams, but the person that's lost their health has only one dream." And this resonates so much for me because I know that when I started my journey back in 2012, I got to tell you that, experiencing debilitating fatigue, having brain fog, not being able to sleep, my hair falling off, all of these things that were going on, I only had one thing in mind at that point, and that was to basically get my health back. Okay. That was a point where nothing else mattered. And that's why, they say like, hey, it doesn't matter how successful you become, it doesn't matter, how much you accumulate in terms of like wealth and all these other things. If you don't have your health, like nothing really matters. Like all you really care about at that point is essentially taking care of your health. And so the way that I started to treat health as a skill, and the reason why I think of health as a skill is because when I started my journey, I did a lot of things that actually helped me improve, a variety of things from fasting, from, doing a raw vegan diet, doing a plant-based ketogenic diet, optimizing my microbiome. And, all of these things combined, helped me to an extent. But see, here's something that happened that made me realize that health is a skill. It's something that you have to practice every single day. And what happened was that after about 4 or 5 years of being strict and doing all of these things to help me with my health, I got to a point where I felt like, like I'm good. Like my digestion's good. I'm lean. I'm no longer fatigued. I have energy. I have all these things going on for me. And I just took my foot off the gas pedal and kind of like went back to quote unquote normal life, eating the same foods I used to eat, and basically, thinking that, hey, my friends will always say, like, it's just, it's just a pizza, or it's just a cookie, like just enjoy yourself, every now and then. And, and I fell into that for a little bit because I'm human, right? I have the same sugar cravings that everyone else has. My favorite foods have always been things like, pizza, white chocolate, macadamia nut cookies, carrot cake, and trust me, like I miss all of those foods. I miss eating bread and all of that stuff. And it's not that I don't eat it, but what happened was that as my health began to deteriorate and go back to where it started, I realized what had happened. And what happened was that I stopped doing the things that really helped me improve my health. And these things aren't, like I said, it wasn't that I found some sort of magical shake to drink or magical supplement to take that all of a sudden fixed me. No, what helped me was a series of habits. And that's really what I want to share with you today is the habits that I believe have had the biggest impact in my health. And before I do that, I want to read off another one of my favorite proverbs. And this one is Proverbs, in chapter 10, verse 4, which says, "The slack hand impoverishes, but the hand of the diligent enriches." And I think this proverb has such a deep meaning because, when you think of a hand, if a hand is, talking about, hey, a slack hand a lazy hand basically is something, a person that doesn't do an activity, right? If you don't do an activity, that impoverishes your life. And that can be in health, it can be in wealth, it can be in relationships. Meaning if you don't do something every single day to improve your health, your wealth, or a relationship, right? That's a slack hand, right? And that impoverishes. But a diligent hand means someone that takes an action every single day towards either their health, wealth, or relationships, or whatever area of their life they want, that is going to enrich. Okay. And so as I started to understand this concept, I started to understand like, hey, there were certain things that I was doing that has led to me living this lifestyle where I enjoy good health, right? Where I've been able to transform my health, where I've been able to go from feeling tired all the time to now having more energy than I did in my 20s, even though now I'm, 36 as I record this. And so the series of habits that really started to have an impact, the first one, first of all, was basically waking up. And first thing that I do when I wake up is I chug down an entire quart of water, right? And I do sometimes distilled water with no minerals, and sometimes I do add a lot of minerals, whether it's the magnesium or solate salt that I talk about. But basically an entire quart of water, I chug it down as soon as I wake up, so I start out my day hydrated. And within the morning I also drink a lot of water. But just that one habit of drinking water first thing when you wake up, that habit alone has had such a major impact. And it's interesting because I've been sharing this for, gosh, a number of years now, and there's so many people that still don't do it, right? They hear me talk about it and they still don't do it. The slack hand impoverishes, but the diligent hand enriches. Okay, so you got to remember that this isn't a one-time thing. This is something that you're going to do every single day, and you have to turn it into a habit. Okay, so that's habit number one. Habit number two is, as I drink my water, I drink my water and then I have my journal in the morning, and I have this morning routine where the first thing that I do in the morning is I sit down and I write down 10 things that I'm grateful for. And I believe that this practice is, it's such a magical practice that I really wish more people would do. Because what I see, and I know that what I used to do was I would wake up and I would basically go to my phone and start either checking social media, checking email, and you just don't know what's going to pop up, right? If you read something negative, right, as soon as you wake up, you're basically starting out your day stressed out. You're starting out your day in this reactive mode, as opposed to waking up and the first thing you do is, be grateful. You become grateful for, there's so many things that, you can be grateful for. And that's the interesting part about it, is that as you start this exercise, you're going to find that, the first day to list 10 things, it's easy. You go the second day, and then the second day, you kind of start to run out of things. And then you go to the third day and then you start to run out of things. And then you get to a point where you really have to start thinking about, what are things that you should be grateful for. But that's really the magical part of this process, is that you start to realize like, hey, you know what? I've never really been grateful for just having another day. Like I tell people, if you woke up in a bed today, know that there are people in this world who don't have a bed to sleep. That's something that you should be grateful for. Um, if you're able to go to the bathroom and you're able to just turn on a faucet and you get running water, that's something you should be grateful for, because there are people in this world who don't have running water. And aside from all of that, of what you should or shouldn't really do, I believe that starting a day with a state of gratitude is a way that your body is able to manage stress, right? If you don't do that, I find that when I don't do that, I tend to fall into, states of, anxiety, or, or depression, more, easier. But if I start with gratitude, I have things to look forward to. I have things to, be grateful for. And this is, an important habit. And I believe that there is this relationship between your health and your mind, where a healthy gut is a healthy mind, and a healthy mind is a healthy gut. Okay, if you're constantly stressed out, right? If you have these negative thoughts running through you, if your mind is just running wild, that can increase your level of cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and that does have an effect on your gut microbiome. And then similarly, if your gut microbiome isn't right, then your hormone production can, be off to where you may be missing, or be experiencing this lack of serotonin dopamine production, which is the feel good happy hormones. And that's where you start to experience some of these states of being. So there's that direct correlation from, both sides. And I believe that gratitude is how you handle the mental side of it, whereas diet and, optimizing your microbiome is how you handle the physical side, your microbiome side of, mental health. And so these are like my two of my top habits. The third one is basically intermittent fasting. Okay, intermittent fasting is something that I started after I did a juice fast, and this juice fast is basically what got me started on my health journeys, when I started to realize that there's so much that there was so much toxic waste in my body that I needed to empty out my digestive tract, and I needed to start to clean and sanitize. I needed to basically detoxify my body. And what I realized was that after I did a 5-day fast reset, right? I did this 5-day juice fasting, and it basically allowed me to reset my body. And I experienced such a change. Like, my energy levels went through the roof. I started to sleep so much better, that I understood what it meant, what was the difference between having a toxic body and having a clean body. And so ever since that experience, my entire diet and lifestyle revolves really around finding ways to keep my body clean, finding ways to detox my body, avoiding putting toxic foods into my body, avoiding putting toxic anything into my body. I mean, that includes not just food, but products that you put on your body, like from like the toothpaste that you use, your soaps and shampoos, and all that stuff can have a lot of toxic stuff, and your skin absorbs anything that you put into it. And so understanding that concept, intermittent fasting became my one habit, where I'm like, okay, if there's something that I can do every single day to move the needle forward, to basically improve my health, even if it's just a little bit, intermittent fasting was one of those habits. Okay, so that's basically habit number 3. And I can tell you, like, these habits, especially intermittent fasting, is the one that I've stuck with. That was the one that I said, intermittent fasting, it doesn't cost anything. It actually saves me time, because I don't have to prepare breakfast in the morning, and I also don't have to do like the cleanup for it or anything. I tend to find that when I do intermittent fasting, my mind is sharper. I can concentrate and focus a lot more throughout the morning. And so that became the one habit that I say, okay, no matter what happens, I can always do intermittent fasting. Okay, so that was habit number 3. Now, from there, I started to layer in other things. And some of these are not necessarily things I will call habits in the sense that I do it every day, but they're habits in the sense that I do them on a very frequent basis. And so one of them is, I tend to have like my first meal, what I call my true breakfast, basically the meal that I use to break my fast, which I sometimes eat about 2 p.m., or as of late I've only been doing one meal a day. So my breakfast is my dinner, which I eat right around 5, 5 no later than 7. That habit that I created there was basically to make sure that that first meal that I ever have is something that is planned out, something that I know that it's not going to be junk, something that I know that it's actually going to, in a way, continue a lot of the benefits of fasting. Because fasting, essentially what it does is that it turns on your fat burners on. It basically makes your body go into a state of ketosis where it starts to burn fat as a source of fuel. And that's, one of the good things about fasting, is that now your body's becoming a lot more efficient at burning fat as a source of fuel. And so because I start to understand this about fasting, my first meal is usually a ketogenic type of meal, right? And so two of the main meals, I guess, that I would eat, as a breakfast would either be, when I was doing a plant-based diet, plant-based ketogenic diet, I was using a lot of coconut oil, avocados, and hemp seeds. And so I will make a smoothie using those three ingredients as the base ingredients, and then using either chlorella, spirulina, or blue-green algae, maca root powder. And those were like the top 5 ingredients. Sometimes I will add coconut shavings and, blend it all up. And then I'll put cacao nibs after I blend it. And so the cacao nibs will give it like a crunchy texture. But that was like one meal that I would have. And because it's ketogenic and, it's like a quart size, like that could last me practically all day, because fat goes a long ways. It's premium fuel. When I'm not doing a plant-based diet, I find bone broth to be a very nourishing food. And bone broth, if it's done correctly, if it's done in the traditional way, which is usually about a 2 to 3 day process to really extract all of the nutrients from bones and get like the bone marrow and all that stuff out there. This is basically what ancestral nutrition is about. This is what traditional food preparation is about. This is basically how people used to do it before the convenience of the microwave and refrigerator and all these things showed up into our modern day society. This is what people used to do, and this is a much more nourishing type of food. But this is basically something that I have as a habit, is to have that type of food readily accessible so that I'm not tempted to eat something bad. And just by doing that, essentially what I'm doing is I'm starting my day by hydrating. I do a gratitude journal. I do intermittent fasting up until about noon, 2 p.m. And then if I have my first meal that is a good meal, over half of my day has now been something that I've done to improve my health. Okay, so if I ever do cheat meals, or do something where I'm not trying to do something to improve my microbiome, that will happen around dinner time. But by then I've already conquered most of the day, and by doing so, I am more likely to actually stay good and do something good for dinner because I've already conquered the entire day. And so just by creating those habits for the beginning of the day, that's how I'm able to do a lot of the things that I do. That's how I'm able to stick to my diet. That's how I'm able to, do a lot of these things that I'm doing. And so these are like some of the most important habits that I believe I've created. And then next, these are some of the other habits that, again, they're not something that I do every single day, but I rotate. It's not that I don't do every single day, but detoxing is something that I do on a very regular basis, but I have to rotate and alternate. And so usually the way that it looks like for me is that I'll take about 2 to 4 week periods at a time where I'll go all in on detoxing my liver, right? So for maybe a 30-day period, I may just do my regular diet, everything else like I just shared, and then I will start to either incorporate into my diet or into my routine something that is going to help me clean out my liver, whether it's Ayurvedic herbs, adaptogens, doing some sort of cleanse, maybe even doing like green juice fast, a lot of the dark leafy greens, bitter stuff, like those are all good. So those are certain things that I can do. And then once I'm done with that, the next 30 days or the next couple of weeks, I can go and basically focus on detoxing my gut, right? So then I'll take those 2 weeks and then I'll focus on doing things to clean out my gut, whether it could be fasting, right? I've done up to a 7-day water only fast, which again, that's something that you don't do starting out, but once your body's, cleaner, doing a water only fast for me is one way to really empty out my digestive tract. And it allows me to actually go in and clean and sanitize, right? Because again, everything that I do is something that I do borrowing concepts from the process of brewing beer. And in my case, as I'm trying to optimize my microbiome, as I'm trying to regrow probiotics in my gut, what I understand is that I am more likely to grow probiotics in my gut if my gut is clean and sanitized, just like brewing equipment, right? You don't go and make beer, grow yeast, right? That's basically what brewing beer is you're essentially growing yeast, a probiotic, brewer's yeast. You don't do that in a contaminated equipment, okay, because that's going to inhibit the growth of it. When you have a wild yeast in your brewing equipment, the wild yeast can eat the food that will normally feed the brewer's yeast, the good yeast that you want. And I believe the same thing is happening in our guts, in our bodies. When I was experiencing all these autoimmune conditions and leaky gut and all this stuff, I would basically, in my mind, it's basically what happened when I would eat. Instead of my probiotics eating that food, I will have some sort of either yeast candida or yeast albicans, some sort of yeast overgrowth that will eat that food. And instead of me getting nutrients, what would happen to me was that my belly will blow up, and I will basically get, gas and kind of like this bloating feeling where I felt like someone was pumping air inside of me, right? And so this is basically what I was noticing. And so what made sense to me was that I needed to do the same thing that I would do when brewing beer, which is essentially I needed to clean my equipment, clean my digestive tract, and sanitize. And you can't sanitize something that isn't clean, right? So that's where fasting came into the picture for me, where it just made sense that I had to do it, even though it's, when I first started, I was scared to do it. And even to date, okay, like the last time that I did a 7-day water fast was last year around August, I believe. So it's been a few months, and I'm kind of due for another one. I want to try to do like at least, once or twice every single year. And so I'm going to probably try to do one at the beginning of the year and one later towards the year. So I should be getting ready to do another, water fast. But understand that even today, even after going through all of this, even after doing all the things that I do, whenever I go to do a water fast, I still hesitate. Like I still think twice. I was like, oh, like I'm gonna go 7 days without, eating anything. Like it's not an easy thing to do. But again, I believe that has been such a key component to me maintaining my health, because when you do a true fast like that, there's so many things that happen at that 4th to 5th day period. There's like this reset that happens, and it's something that you're just going to have to experience, for yourself. And again, it's not something that you start out with, but you build up to it. And when you build up to it and you do it and you actually experience it, you're going to see, what I'm talking about. You'll, like I said, the quality of sleep that I got, the mental clarity, just so many things that happen out of that. Like I can't wait but to hear, some stories from people who actually, you know, build themselves up to it and do it the right way under, the proper supervision. Um, but anyways, so cleaning out your gut, and doing all these detoxes, these are also part of my habits. Another habit is cleaning my lymph system. And this is something that I don't hear too many people talk about, but your lymph system, essentially your skin being the largest organ of the body, every single pore and stuff like that, when your body sweats, that's where it's trying to get rid of toxicity in the body. And a lot of that toxic waste starts in the gut to begin with. Okay, so if you follow along, the more you clean your gut, the less you have to clean your lymph system. But once your gut is toxic and your liver becomes overwhelmed from all that toxicity, all of that toxicity goes and spreads into your body until your lymph system gets clogged. Once your lymph system gets clogged, that's when you start to accumulate toxicity. And when you start to accumulate toxicity, the body needs to protect itself from all that toxic waste. So it starts to build body fat around that toxic waste. And that's when people begin to accumulate body fat. And what I found was that as I started to clean out my lymph system, basically open up the pores, which, I mean, there's a variety of ways to do this. Even just going to the sauna and sweating, that's one way to open up the pores. I do a different protocol. There's something that's called washa, and it's basically I take this vodka solution with sodium bicarbonate, fossil shell flour, minerals, and silica. And this is something that, you know, I use externally. And so I soak a towel and then I scrub my skin, you know, with this towel, and that basically pulls up all this grime and dirt and stuff from like the pores, and it basically opens up your pores, and that's how you clean your lymph system. And as you begin to clean your lymph system, there's a variety of things that begin to happen. For one, your body's now it's better able to detoxify. So now if you go into the sauna, well, number one, I mean, if you're following what I teach, you should be well hydrated if you go to the sauna, first of all, but, you know, and drink an extra water when you go to the sauna. But when you go to the sauna and you have a clean lymph system, when your pores are clean, you're going to notice that you sweat a lot faster. Within like 3-5 minutes at most, your body's just river sweating. You're just like, you know, drenched in sweat. And that's good, because that's a lot of that sweat basically is carrying a lot of the toxic waste that you're trying to, you know, get rid of the body. And the one saying that I like to say is that the cleaner your body is, the leaner your body is going to be. Clean is lean, and lean is clean. Okay, the more body fat your body has, that basically means that your body is toxic. Okay, that just tells you the amount of work that you have to do in order to clean it out. And, you know, the reason why I have all this energy, the reason why my digestive system is good, well, the reason why I'm able to optimize my microbiome is because I've been cleaning out my body. I've been detoxifying my body. I've been getting rid of all of that stuff. And so, you know, once you get to a point where, you know, you lean down, it's just so much easier to maintain the body. And again, health is a skill. Okay, if I stop doing the things that I've been doing to get me to this point, guess what? I'm going to go back to the same place I started. I'm going to start eating bad foods again. My gut's going to start to get toxic again. My lymph system's going to start to get clogged again. Like, I understand how the body functions. And so all of these habits are basically a way for me to just maintain a healthy lifestyle. Okay, it's no longer about, and, you know, I do enjoy food. Like, I still eat, you know, good foods. I still, you know, try out different foods. I'm a foodie type of person. But what has happened is that I have learned that there's no food out there that tastes as good as how I feel when I eat truly nourishing food. Okay, and truly nourishing food, there's a lot of really good nourishing food out there. Okay, if you just, you know, if you just expand, you know, your knowledge, your mind, if you start to look outside of what you're used to. I grew up knowing most of the foods that a lot of people eat, like, you know, milk, cereal, pancakes, waffles, your omelets, you know, your typical oatmeal, coffee, um, orange juice, and all the stuff that, you know, people consider like pretty normal to eat. I grew up eating all of the same foods, and so when I started to find, you know, new foods that were foreign to me, at first I kind of missed all of the old stuff that I used to eat, and to an extent I still do. But then as I started to incorporate some of these newer foods into my lifestyle, now what happens is that if I don't do those healthy foods, if I go out to eat, even though sometimes I go out and you know, the food may taste good, once I'm done with it, I don't feel as good. And I miss that feeling more than anything. Like the pleasure of eating that taste was short-lived. And every time that I do that, where that happens, and then I don't feel as good afterwards, that's when I start to miss the really good foods. But I'm like, wow, like, I know that when I eat the good stuff, I actually have more energy. And that's the thing, is that food should give you energy. Food isn't something that should make you drowsy and sleepy 30 minutes after you eat. And so as you start to understand more about food and how your body functions, these are things that you're going to start to notice. and you're going to start to find what are the foods that energize you, what are the foods that actually make you feel good, what are the foods that your body can actually digest properly, what are the foods that actually give your body the nutrients that it needs. And as you start to identify those and you start to incorporate them into your lifestyle, they start to become a habit. Okay. Oftentimes, what happens is that people ask me about my diet, and then I may give them different things that I do, and they become overwhelmed because they're thinking about all the things that they currently do, and they think that they're going to add something new to it. When in reality, the way that it actually looks like is that whatever it is that you're doing, you need to start with, I would start with early in the day, like breakfast. And instead of eating what you normally do, just start doing that one new thing. And that one new thing, the first time that you do it, is going to seem like an entire, ordeal. You're going to think like, oh, this takes too much time, whatever. But that's because you're new to it. But once you do that new thing 3 times, 5 times, it becomes a habit. You become familiar to it and you start to do it quick. And then after a while, it just becomes second nature. And that's what habits do more than anything, is that nowadays I have certain things that I default to whenever I'm out and about and I need to eat something. My mind no longer gravitates to, if I'm out and about, oh, I'm going to go through the drive-through and pick up something quick. Right? My mind now gravitates towards different things. And sometimes it can be something as simple as just grabbing a drink of, kombucha or coconut water, or, if I'm, depending on the circumstances or the situation, I have different things that I could eat. Even just grabbing an avocado sometimes as a snack, that can be something that I have, but now I have different things that I default to. And so I believe that takes time to build. But as you start to develop habits and create new routines for yourself, that's really what's going to begin to happen when you're first starting out. If you've never done any of this stuff, if you don't understand what are good foods for you, what are not good foods for you, you're not going to have these habits. And this is going to seem like a lot of work to do. And to be honest, it can be a lot of, when you're starting out, but that's why you got to start one step at a time. And I believe that the best way to do it is by creating, a pretty awesome morning routine. You know, Starting out with your first step in the morning, drinking water, like that's just one step. Find out what is the next step in your lifestyle that needs to be optimized. And this is essentially the formula that I'm following to optimize my microbiome. Is just taking one step at a time. And then you're going to find that once you start to take care of your entire day, there's always going to be an improvement. There's always going to be something new that you can do. Like, for example, as I record this, my diet, I've been following a kind of like what I was thinking would be a well-balanced, something that is long-term that I could follow, which essentially includes grass-fed, pasture-raised beef with sauerkraut, avocados. And then I do beef organs to get a lot of my nutrients. Now, even though that is a very sustainable diet, I know that I enjoy doing more plant-based diets. I know that I enjoy going long periods of times where I'm just enjoying like a plant-based ketogenic diet, or something similar to like a raw vegan, but my definition on that is a little bit different than most people's. And I know that when I follow those types of diets, I find myself to be in more of a calm mood type of state. And so I think that for me, having diets like that where I can default to it, where I know that, hey, if I do this for 3 months or so, I know what result I can expect. And this gives me flexibility. This is what really allows me to enjoy different types of foods, different types of things, because eating beef every day can get tiring at times. Just like eating a plant-based, ketogenic smoothie can get tiring at times. It allows me to kind of like switch back and forth. But anyway, so those are some of the main habits as far as diet goes, but it doesn't really end there. I believe that with health, there's a lot of other things that you can do. One of them that I don't hear many people talk about when it comes to gut health is sleep. It's optimizing sleep. And in optimizing sleep, I mean, sleep is really where your body recovers. That's where a lot of good physiological changes happen to your gut. And, I mean, it's really when you transition from being in a, when you eat, going from that state into a fasted state, right? That happens overnight. And so if you don't get good quality sleep, your gut just doesn't, it doesn't clean itself out as good as when you are in a deep, relaxing, dreamlike state, when you're able to hit that REM cycle. That's really what you're looking for. And the more that you're able to improve that quality of sleep, you're going to notice that your gut health is going to improve. And so for me, these are habits that I also started to create. One of them is I turn off technology at least an hour before bed, and I try to do it actually even earlier than that, up to 2 hours before I go to bed, because a lot of like your screens, whether you're on a laptop or your phone, there's blue light, and that blue light does actually affect your melatonin production and basically keeps you from falling asleep. It's kind of like tricking your body to tell it that it's still daylight. And so I actually have a pink Himalayan salt lamp, and that's basically what I use at night, as a light source as well, instead of using other light sources that same thing that will have that type of light. That's one thing that I do, using blackout, like sleeping in low light, and in a low light environment, checking the temperature of the room. All of these things, like there's a sleeping routine that I have, and it's a habit. Even going to bed early, I'm usually in bed by 10, maybe 10:30 at the latest. And again, all of these habits combined, there's a synergy, okay, between all of this that I believe help you with your overall health. And again, going back to the Proverbs, a slack hand impoverishes, but a diligent hand enriches. Everyone here, you have this information, you can do it. Okay. But there's going to be people that, it's easy to wake up and drink a quart of water, but it's also easy not to do it. And that's where this proverb, I believe, really rings true. And it's one of the reasons why I like to share some of these, proverbs and things that I know have helped my mindset, because that is part of the process. Okay. I didn't just start eating healthy. Back when I started, I had a hard time giving up certain foods. I had a hard time giving up bread. I used to not be able to imagine a meal without bread. Before I went fully ketogenic, it took me probably like a good 6 months of contemplating completely eliminating sugar from my diet so I can go full on ketogenic. It took me about 6 months to make that decision. Okay, so I want you to understand that I am not like this magical person that's somehow able to diet and do all of these things. Like, I had to do a lot of mental work and mental preparation for it. And I think that that is one of the hardest things. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to do through this podcast and through this series, through these trainings where I talk about mindset, right? I started out before the podcast, I was doing Success Sundays. And it was basically that. I was trying to help you elevate your thinking patterns, help you think differently, help you understand that your thoughts, these are words, are powerful, and thoughts are basically words that haven't come out of your mouth yet. And when you understand that your thoughts have creative power. This is where you begin to see that if you're constantly telling yourself that you can't do this, that it's hard, that you don't see yourself doing that, that's creating that reality for you. And so for me to be able to listen to people here, and when I coach people, that's one of the biggest things that I do is I listen to what they're saying and I help them identify those thoughts, and I help them reframe those thoughts so that now they're thinking thoughts like, I am healthy. I can eat, I can eat healthy. I am a healthy eater. All of these more positive, I help people create a vision for, their life. And this is really actually another one of the habits that I have, which is part of the journal, my gratitude journal that I do in the morning. Part of my gratitude journal is including having a vision for myself, having a vision for what I want my health to look like down the road in the future, and every day practicing that vision. And I actually practice that when I'm going to bed. It's part of my sleeping routine. Once I turn everything off and I'm blacked out and I'm in bed, I am basically listening to audios that are positive, encouraging, and it's actually myself. I recorded myself basically saying all these affirmations, and I'm listening to that, and I'm visualizing what I want to be. Like what I want my future self to be like. So if I were to go to sleep and wake up a different person, like what would I want that person to be? That's basically what I do, both when I go to sleep and when I wake up before I get out of bed. Same thing. That's how I start my day. Like that's actually the very first thing that I do. Then when I get up, that's when I drink water. But all of these are habits that I believe help me out. And if you follow, the process that I'm following, it's basically that. I call this the domino effect, whereas your thoughts determine what you say. What you say determines how you feel. How you feel determines how you act. And then how you act determines your results. So from the night before and from the moment that I start my day, I am thinking that I am a healthy person. I am thinking I see myself as being a master of my microbiome. Okay, I understand my own body. I understand my microbiome, and I see myself as being that person. And because I think those thoughts over and over and over and over, I tend to speak about that subject over and over and over. And because I speak, right, I teach this for this reason, is because it keeps me on my toes. It basically keeps my mind on this topic, and by speaking those thoughts, I feel healthier. I can tell you that when I stopped teaching this information, that's when I let go of my health as well, because I wasn't thinking about it as much. Now that I'm showing up every single day and teaching these concepts, it makes me more likely to actually follow my own advice, to practice what I preach, if you will. And this is a hint that I'm trying to give to you, whether you're watching this video live or you're watching the replay, listening to this on my podcast. If you want health, teaching is one of the best ways to get health, because you're going to have health on your mind all the time. And the more you think it, the more you speak it, the more you're going to feel like a healthy person. And as you begin to feel, once your body begins to vibrate and resonate at that frequency of being a healthy person, you're just naturally going to take the action. You're naturally going to start to create these habits that I just, shared with you, whether it's drinking water, detoxing your body, eating a first healthy meal, trying to carry that out throughout the day. All of that is more likely to happen when you start out with the right process, and it starts out with your thoughts. That's the power of gratitude in the morning. It's another way to really embed all of those thoughts and feelings into your body. And that's essentially, in a nutshell, what I believe has helped me more than anything. And if you think that there's nothing magical about it, there really isn't. The only difference between me and a lot of people that follow me is that I've just been doing this a lot longer and I've been a lot more consistent. But everyone here has the same exact ability. Okay, you can start doing the same thing. And again, there's going to be people that say, well, it's hard for me. That's where I go back to, like, listen to your thoughts and start writing out what you want your health to be like, and just start telling yourself that, start thinking those thoughts, start speaking those out, start teaching some of this stuff. And you're going to find that the more that you do that, you start to reverse that process and you start to act accordingly. And if you do it over a prolonged period of time, there's a compound effect that happens. That compound effect, the way that it looks like, and a lot of people that go through my 30-day hydration challenge experiences, the first 2 to up to maybe 3 weeks, you don't really see much of a difference. You're kind of like scratching your head, when it's like, is this really going to do anything for me? But once you start to see results, once the cells of your body start to actually hydrate and you start to see those changes in your skin, and you start to notice your energy levels begin to rise, you start to actually just feel better. You start to sleep a little better. You start to actually wake up and you feel good, right? That happens right around week 3, week 4. For some people, it may take 5 to 6 weeks. There's a compound effect where results begin to happen at an exponential rate. And that's been the hardest challenge, I guess, for me, to get people through those initial first few weeks before they experience results. Because once you experience those results, everything else changes. It's so much easier to go, because you know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You have hope. You now realize, like, hey, there is something that I can do about my health. And and it starts out with a set of habits. So health is a skill. Okay, I hope that these habits that I shared with you serve you. I hope that you begin to take them and you begin to practice them every single day beyond the 30-day challenges that I do and whatever. I hope that you just practice them and take them as your daily routines, just moving forward, because I know that 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road, you're going to look back and you're just going to be grateful that you actually took this advice and you applied it. So that's my wish for you. Thank you for listening. And I hope and I wish you a great rest of your day.